was soaked for several hours. The bolts in the back, it's a 9/16 for the line nut, and then it's a 7/16 for the two bolts that hold the cylinder in. Have the new cylinder, and for those, this is a cheat I learned a long time ago. So if you have a wrench and you need to get a little bit extra leverage, you can typically hook a wrench into each other, and then you can have it where you have a longer leverage, then you can move it. So just a little helpful trick that I learned a while ago and has come in handy on quite a few occasions. So I am able to turn the fitting on the brake line, and I just need to take a little bit closer look to make sure that the fitting is actually spinning and the brake line isn't spinning with it. And then I'll undo the two bolts on this, and then I'll pull it off, and I'll show you what I got from there. So I was able to get it out. It's helpful if you take off the bleeder. You have a little bit more room to work to get it through the hole without having to take all this off. So I was able to do it just by removing this spring and the spring that hooks in over here. So I was able to remove the wheel cylinder that way. I was successfully able to remove this the nut off of the brake line out of here without doing any damage to the line. I did have to take a hammer and give it a good pop to get this to come out because it's kind of rusted and that into place. So I'll clean this up some and that, and then I will clean up my hands a little bit, and then I will work on putting in the new wheel cylinder, and I'll probably take the bleeder out just so I have more room to work to put that back through there. And I will also and then once I get it back in there, I'll put the bleeder back in, of course tighten up the fitting for my brake line. I did make sure that these do squish in, and you can see the air bubble here, and this is where the wheel cylinder was leaking. So get this bad boy replaced, brake line's back on. I will have to bleed both sides, not a big deal, as long as I can loosen up the bleeder so I can bleed. They do still have the rubber caps on them, which is nice, but we'll see whether I can get this fitting out of there on the other side to bleed. So, or I might get lucky and may not have to do that. We'll see. All right. I'll be back in a bit with the install in the other order. So I sprayed it down with brake cleaner, got it on nice and clean. I did use the rubber grommet from the old bleeder on the old wheel cylinder, and I just capped it on top of my brake line so I didn't get any brake cleaner into my brake line, which this kind of did a nice job. I removed the bleeder from my new wheel cylinder, so then that way I can have a little bit more room to maneuver, because this new one sticks out quite a bit further than the old one. The old one stuck out only about that far. This one sticks out probably about out to here. So that would definitely present some problems trying to get that back in there. Like I said, I'm trying to do this with the least amount of removal possible, so then that way I can get it put back together relatively quickly. And that, so the only thing I have left to do is add the wheel cylinder, put my brake line back on there, put my bleeder back in, and bolt it into place, and I will be done and ready to bleed brake lines. So yeah, I guess the other thing I will try and do is get the bleeder off the other side, and it is 5/16 to remove that. So as long as I can loosen up that side, I should be good to go. And then I'll just put the springs back on, put everything back in place. I'll give the pads probably, or the shoes, one last good cleaning with some brake cleaner, clean up the drum a little bit more, and should be good to go without no adjustment. So we'll see what happens. Alright, so I got the wheel cylinder in. I had to pull this off to the side a little bit, and then I had to put it in where this was, where the fittings were upright, and then I had to kind of tap it in without being sure that I'm only hitting up there and not actually hitting the rubber on the wheel cylinder. And it went right back in, bolts lined up, springs, got those put back on, got the line hooked back up without any problems. Everything looks like it's where it still should be on here. So yeah, remove this spring here, remove this spring. You can take out your wheel cylinder, remove your bleeder, and give you a lot more room to remove your wheel cylinder, and remove it when you go to put it back in, put it in after the fact. So then that way you also don't damage it, and also it gives you more room to work. So there you go. Just a couple of springs and a couple of bolts, and you just changed the wheel cylinder. Now I'll just put everything back together, put the wheel on spacers, clean up the drum a little bit more, and I'm ready for fluids bleeding, and I'm back on the road. Thanks for watching.